The moment we start, we can start off. Kiranma, you can start introduction once we are live.
Yes.
Are we live? Start.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon to one and all. Good afternoon to one and all. I'm Kiranmai, currently working as a project scientist B in Let's Fix Our Food, supported by UNICEF at National Institute of Nutrition. I welcome you all on the special occasion of Children's Day to this fourth technical e-dialogue webinar on the importance of nutrition literacy among adolescents. Happy Kids Day to all. There is a child in all of us, and nutrition education among children is highly important as it can help to establish a foundation for healthy eating habits and nutritional knowledge that a child can apply throughout their lives. Therefore, proper nutrition literacy for children is important as it sets the stage for them towards living a healthy and balanced life for the rest of their lives. We have some very prominent speakers and interesting young and dynamic youth leaders to discuss about nutrition education, which is very vital. Now, I take this opportunity to inform that since our director, Dr. R. Hemalata Madam, is currently in Delhi due to work commitments, so Dr. Lakshmaya sir will represent our director, Madam. Now I request my colleague, Dr. Priyadarshini, to introduce Dr. Lakshmaya.
Thank you, Kiran. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to introduce Dr. A. Lakshmaya, sir, who is Scientist G and the Head, Division of Public Health Nutrition, ICMR, National Institute of Nutrition. Sir has worked extensively on different epidemiological studies, translational research cum impact evaluations, and randomized clinical trials in the field of public health nutrition. Sir has led several rounds of NNMD surveys on rural, tribal, and urban diet in India, where he was the officer in charge. He is the faculty member for the postgraduate and ad hoc training courses in the institute and also School of Public Health, National Institute of Epidemiology. Sir has authored more than 150 national and international peer-reviewed scientific papers. Now, I request Sir to deliver the inaugural address.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and also good evening and good morning. So, I'm happy to be here to give some inaugural address. So today I'm very lucky but this is a very important topic, and we have been working since several years for adolescent nutrition, pregnant and lactating mothers, and adolescent nutrition or adolescent literacy. Nutrition literacy is very, very important. So before I start, I warmly welcome all the speakers and dignitaries today, especially Professor Kalen. Is assistant as associate professor public health nutrition, academic lead indigenous health, faculty of health, Queensland University of Technology. So warmly welcome for this important e-dialogue series webinar. And of course, Dr. Subbarao and myself, we have been working on adolescent nutrition since more than a decade, I think. So several issues we addressed, and another important speaker, Dr. Gauri Srivastava. So she is a professor and head of Department of Education in Social Sciences and NCERT New Delhi. So, Madam, warmly welcome to this important e-dialogue meeting, and definitely the program is very balanced and very good, and definitely the audience definitely they can get immense knowledge from this seminar. And afterwards, and even team AK EKJAT, non-profit. What is this EKJAT?
Ekjut.
EKJAT, it is a organization or?
Yeah, it's an NGO. Yeah.
Okay, so non-profit voluntary organization in India. So they will also address on this. And another one is panel discussion. So panel discussion and several speakers are there. So they will give their remarks on this important subject. So this nutrition literacy among adolescents, as I said, it is a very important topic. And we always used to say that even literate people also illiterate in nutrition. Illiteracy is everywhere there. Even just because of literacy, all literate people may not know that nutrition literacy. So nutrition literacy is very, very important to the role of the dietitians and nutrition researchers is very much to educate all the people. So those who are educated and even illiterate people also, we have to educate nutrition literacy. So as we discuss nutrition literacy, why it is important in both ways. Even we are now talking about triple burden of disease, especially in India, like developed, underdeveloped, and developing countries like India. So that the undernutrition and micronutrient malnutrition, and as well as now epidemic increase of non-communicable diseases also evident in India. And the non-communicable disease, especially the overweight obesity among adolescent group is very, very high. And we have done series of studies, prevalence studies and determinants, and we several papers also published on this. But it is a overweight obesity is a multifactorial region, not only single thing. And but the most important is food is the main thing. So then physical activity and food. So then the environment. So these are the three things are very important, where they are growing and where they are coming up, and that is also influence most of the things. And of course, regarding food, even food systems also important. We have to discuss food systems. So what is the availability, affordability, and the choices, healthy choice also we have to discuss in this issue today. Here, especially as we discussed in several studies also, the children, especially teachers and parents and everybody aims that their child should get a first rank. That is the aim, but unfortunately, nobody paying much attention on physical activity. So that is physical activity is the more important, and unfortunately, that is not happening. And even today itself, I read one article on some of the newspapers saying that several schools are there, about 7,500 schools. Out of 7,500 schools, only 2,000 schools only got the gardens, so the playgrounds and other things. So in others, they don't have any playgrounds. So, but that is not happening. The physical activity, because when we studied 4 decades back, there was a, because all rural schools, most of the rural schools, they have playgrounds, but in urban schools, especially, the playgrounds cannot be available. And even the school curriculum also, even we have also revised the school curriculum, and we have conducted one randomized clinical trials on physical activity and how BMI changes in school-going children. So that was a model we have developed, and in that model, we have also revised the school curriculum, because the school curriculum is also very important. In their school curriculum, at least one period should be allotted on sports and games. Even some of the schools, the curriculum, it is there, one period allotted schools and sports and games, but unfortunately that never happens. That sports period is converted to other science and maths classes. So that is being happen in the most of the schools. And so this even we have also established school nutrition clubs, school nutrition clubs among the school children. So the nutrition club, whoever the person is there, they used to take care of, so they used to motivate other students. And those nutrition clubs in the schools also very important. So our school children now, what happening, you all know. So they are almost growing in a obesogenic environment, and lot of nutrition transition, and most of the adolescents are, as all aware that because most of the adolescents are eating outside food and the junk food, and so the it is a junk food. As you know, all the food is may not contain most of the nutrients and only calorie dense foods people are eating. So these are the some of the important issues, and the determinants of overweight obesity, and our intervention should cover all these determinants. And then another important determinants, even birth itself, the status of overweight obesity is also fixing birth, how the child is born. If the child is suffered intrauterine growth retardation, even that will also lead to early onset of non-communicable disease, as Barker's hypothesis also we used to discuss. So these are very important, and in some of the studies we also analyzed the food. What is the contribution of food itself for the development of overweight obesity? We have done principal component analysis, and we have shown that almost 53% of overweight obesity just because of eating unhealthy food. So I think in this deliberations, and definitely everyone will get benefit by focusing on these issues. So I once again thank you for giving this opportunity, and I wish you all the best, and the program will be successful. So thank you everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Lakshmaya sir, for giving us such useful insights on adolescent nutrition. Now I request my colleague, Mrs. Reshma, to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Subbarao.
Hello, myself Reshma Nakte. Our next speaker actually needs no introduction, Dr. Subbarao. He is Scientist F and Head of Nutrition Information Communication and Health Education, that is Niche Division in ICMR NIM. He is also leading Let's Fix Our Food project under UNICEF. Sir, I welcome you to highlight the issues of nutrition literacy.
Thank you, Reshma. I will now share my screen. And I thank all the panelists and the speakers who have accepted to be part of this very important e-dialogue series. And without sounding like a vote of thanks, I would also want to thank our partners, UNICEF and PHFI, Public Health Foundation of India, Deakin University, for all their inputs in making the speakers come together. This, I think, is a very important e-dialogue of the series that we've had for two reasons. That today is the Children's Day in India, and also it's the Diabetes Day, and particularly this initiative discusses in terms of the growing overweight, obesity, and non-communicable diseases among children, and then trying to get children and adolescents on board to be part of the policy-making effort to fix their own food environment. That's the very objective of this particular initiative. And our institute, the National Institute of Nutrition, is only playing one part in the entire gamut of efforts that are being put by this consortium. You can see the members of the consortium at the bottom. There are many others, including the International Food Policy Research Institute is also part of this, and also the Ministry of Information Broadcasting and Ministry of Education and many others. To give a brief background, I don't see any specific reason to go more into detail. As Dr. Lakshmi has already said, there is a transition that's happening, and then alongside the problems of undernutrition, which are very, very resistant to any kind of effort that we're doing, we are also encountering the problems of overweight, obesity that we all know, especially to make the children's food environment more conducive for healthy food consumption and healthy food choices. 5 different actions have been identified, 5 policy actions have been identified in association with NITI Aayog by the consortium, and these are regulating private and public media advertising of HFSS foods, high fat, sugar, and salt foods, and nutrition literacy and front of pack nutrition labeling, taxation of HFSS foods, and WT actions. These are the initiatives. And as you all know, the consortium partners have come together to make sure that the young people whose environment is now compromised in terms of making it only obesogenic, how can they be brought on to the center table of policy discussions? So this entire endeavor is about that, which without going much into the detail, I just tell you the outcomes that we are looking at. The policy actions are the final outcomes, but for that we are thinking in terms of the capacity building and also the adolescent engagement. I think today emphasis has been given for the second part, the adolescent engagement part, and then we have an entire panel discussion only with adolescents, and then that is befittingly done on this day, which is the Children's Day. And to look at the entire ecosystem approach, if you see in this initiative, there are enabling partners, implementing partners, and adolescent partners. PHFI and UNICEF and UVA program are together bringing together about 50 to 100 adolescent and youth leaders across the country. And PHFI is also trying to conduct a 1 million survey among adolescents to find out what are the food nudges, what are the prompts for them to choose any food, whether healthy or unhealthy, and how they view the food environment themselves. And we as National Institute of Nutrition are also enabling partners by way of advisory role and by way of reviewing the research and other things. But in this e-dialogue series, which is like a multi-stakeholder engagement program to bring in different kinds of perspectives, we are an implementing partner, and adolescents are a very integral part of both the enabling partners endeavors as well as the implementing partners endeavors. And that is about the LFOF, the Let's Fix Our Food initiative. But I think having worked in the area of nutrition education and behavior change, I also would like to flag a few issues. I hope the panelists after me would take some of these issues for discussion. Nutrition literacy, broadly literature says it's part of health literacy. Nutrition literacy is often confused or used interchangeably with nutrition education, nutrition information dissemination, communication, where all these are different terms and different actions are the actions are totally different. But however, there are two broad areas when we talk about literacy. It's nutrition literacy as well as food literacy. I'm sure Dr. Helen would throw more light on this. I'm just trying to scratch the surface. Nutrition literacy, the abilities is basically the ability that is necessary to obtain and understand the nutrition information, whereas food literacy, as it is defined, probably it is much more broader than nutrition literacy itself. But to apply the knowledge that one has, the information that one has, to choose foods wisely, and also to be able to critically reflect on the effect of food and the choice of food on one's own health and society. I think when we conceptualize this particular e-dialogue, what we meant, although nutrition literacy has been identified as one of the drivers in the entire gamut of things that we want to do, what we broadly want to do is not just nutrition literacy, it's nutrition literacy, food literacy, and the communication part of it as well. This is a very, very sketchy kind of a diagram to show how children's food consumption is prompted by environment, skills, peers, parents, education, curriculum, and their own perceptions. But there are many others in this gamut. But for today's event, just to make it simpler, even for our adolescent audience who are attending this particular e-dialogue, I just made it into 4 or 5 simple broad categories. At environment level, if you see the food environment, as has been mentioned already, we have the problems coexisting, and now the triple burden is what we are looking at and we are trying to encounter. And then there are varieties of foods that lure, and the advertising of the food companies that we've discussed in the first e-dialogue. And foods are status symbols. I'm sure some of the adolescents who will join today will tell us all the literacy and all the awareness that they have about nutrition, why it is not being put to action. perhaps one of the reasons is that some of the foods are advertised so aggressively, and some of the also a status symbol is attached to certain foods. And there are growing nuclear families and working parents. There is a lot of traction for convenience foods. There are misnomers about nutritious foods. There are no playgrounds, as Dr. Lakshmaya said. There are no physical activities happening. There is food sovereignty is eroding, and we have invasion of foods and food cultures from all over. And communicating food about food and nutrition in school environments is felt very easy, but I don't know how actionable it is in terms of really working out as a particular skill building activity at the school level. And most importantly, the food policy environment is what we are looking at in this. And also added to that, we have lots of food related communication that's happening, especially post-pandemic area, where you can see people are exposed and bombarded about nutrition and health related messages from all directions. And in this scenario, children definitely need the skills. The skills are as simple as choosing low-cost nutritious foods, and to think that the foods that are nutritious and not expensive is the first thing that should be built in as a skill among children. And looking for variety, as much variety as possible from what is available, and good cooking practices, and differentiating, being able to differentiate between healthy and unhealthy foods, wherever they are, even if they are homemade foods or foods that are consumed away from home. The ability to distinguish between healthy and unhealthy foods is something that is very, very important. And that's what the food and nutrition literacy needs to do. And the safety issues are also important while we talk about nutrition. And then requirements during adolescence is what they have to be aware of, and understanding about the food label information. As we discussed in previous e-dialogue about the front of pack nutrition labeling, even if it is introduced in India, it is still not introduced in the process in India. Would it be really successful in the absence of basic nutrition and food literacy is what we have to consider. And in terms of understanding and perception, there are a lot of variations in terms of understanding and perception. And also science is very dynamic. It says one nutrient is very harmful, and after a few years, the nutrient is removed from the harmful nutrients list. And the experts keep changing their opinion because of the changing science. And it actually gives an opinion to the consumer that scientists are always changing their minds, and media is confusing them with overreaction, and they don't know whom to believe. And also about perceptions, adolescents have different perceptions for various reasons. This is one of the studies that Dr. Lakshmaya was referring to, wherein we try to assess the risk perceptions among the children who are overweight and obese and who are normal. And then we saw that there are, there is a lot of stereotyping that is happening about children who are overweight and obese. And also there were clear differences observed between what they consider obesity, what they consider the reasons for obesity, and eating habits, healthy, unhealthy eating, unhealthy foods, and then the favorite foods, what their favorite foods are, and the physical activity levels were different, and the time spent in front of television was also different among these two. Similarly, at the school level, the teachers who were supposed to teach nutrition and physical activity to them, they themselves were not in tune with the latest developments in nutrition. And at parents and teachers and peers level, as I said, are we miscommunicating about junk foods and then saying all that you consume at home that is traditional is very, very good, while that may not be true. All that you consume, as fast foods or street foods may not be completely non-nutritious. I'm not talking about the health and safety aspect of it, but the ability to differentiate between these two, the healthy and unhealthy, should be much more broad-based than only home-cooked and outside foods. And yeah, this is one point. It's an old study of ours in 2012. We did the analysis of quantitative and qualitative analysis of school science textbooks for nutrition. I am sure Dr. Gauri Srivastava will have very good news for us that the syllabus is much better and much improved than what we saw a long back. And after this, also a student of ours has done the study in 2018 or 19, and the nutrition curriculum is a bit inconsistent from 1 to 10 grades. It is not continuous, or it is a bit repetitive, and there were in certain textbooks certain factual errors in terms of food replacements and other things way back when we did the study. But I'm sure the scenario has changed, and these are the components that are actually missing in terms of the nutrition related content in the school science textbooks when we did our work. The growing top, I mean, the coming up new issues like fortification, the ability and skills to read food labels, all these need to be introduced into the curriculum. But is it enough just to introduce them into curriculum, or how do we make sure that they are built into necessary skills among the children is what needs to be deliberated. And that's a key policy recommendation that we want to give from LFOF, the Let's Fix Our Food initiative, to the government. Yeah, and this is a schematic representation of how foods are marketed and how it is done, how they are marketed and advertised for children, and the kinds of appeals that are used by the industry, wherever they are, at home, at school, at community, in the digital media. The children are easiest target, and the kind of appeals that they use make the unhealthy foods very likable, appealing, and also trendy. So that's the reality. And these are the three different portals: the lifestyle portal, psychological portal, and nutrition portal that we need to work on, wherein the promotion of adequate sleep, physical activity, screen time are as important as good nutrition and being able to get safe and nutritious food. And also the psychological aspects cannot be ignored when we talk about children. And that's where we need to take their views, and their views do matter for any policy making than taking a top-down approach. Thank you. These are some of the quick thoughts that I have had about the issue. And I'm happy to know new things about our speakers who are going to give us different perspectives of measuring nutrition nutrition literacy and food literacy among adolescents, as well as how the government machinery through curriculum is trying to develop these skills among children. Thank you so much. And I have a quick administrative announcement. If there are any questions to be asked, please type them in the chat box or in the Q&A box. We'll be very happy to take them. And then we will proceed to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, sir, for enlightening us about nutrition literacy and flagging the current issues. Thank you for this great presentation. Now now it's a pleasure for me to invite Dr. Professor Helen Widgen. She's the Associate Professor of Public Health Nutrition of Queensland University of Technology. So Madam is a global leader in the area of food literacy. Her definition and conceptualization of the term food literacy is the most cited internationally and has also been adopted by the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. She was the Director of Public Health Nutrition in the State Health Department and has served as the Food and Nutrition Chair to the Public Health Association of Australia. Her recent research achievement is a measure of food literacy that has been published. She is interested in the role of food literacy in supporting individuals, households, communities, and countries to meet their food needs and contribute to healthy, fair, and sustainable food system. I would like to invite Madam to throw some insights on the assessment of nutrition literacy among adolescents in Southeast Asia Pacific countries. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Can I just check that you can see my slides and hear me? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you today. It's a great pleasure, and it's wonderful to be able to connect again and hear what's happening in other parts of the world other than just Australia. I'm going to talk, I've been asked to speak to you today about insights on assessment of nutrition literacy among adolescents in Southeast Asia Pacific countries. How I'm going to go about doing that is talk a bit more about understanding of the term food literacy, have a bit of a conversation around literacy for what purpose, and then talk you through most of our experience has come from looking at food literacy in adults, but talk you through some of our experiences and conundrums around the development of a measure that might be applicable to you also. So just to give you a bit of a background on me, my background is that I'm a dietitian, and I came to academia after a quite extensive experience in practice. I worked in tertiary hospital settings at the beginning of my career, so in clinical settings, but then went fairly soon into public health. I worked in regional areas, coordinated statewide teams, and then worked in our state health department, giving ministerial advice and working on policy. And around that time, also was the chair of the Food and Nutrition Group of the Public Health Association, which is predominantly where I got to know the colleagues from Deakin that recommended me for this presentation today. And then I left to do my research in food literacy because it was a gap in our policy area and practice area at the time in the State Health Department. So what I did with my PhD was a few different studies. So I started off talking to experts across a spectrum of different areas working in food. So nutritionists, people who wrote our curriculum, people who worked in industry, around what they thought people needed to know and understand about food to use it to meet their needs. Then I compared that to what practitioners were currently invested in when they were engaged in programs that were trying to promote or address food literacy. And then I did a study of young people from 16 to 24 years across a spectrum of disadvantage, so from homeless young people through to university graduates, around how, and I interviewed them around how they went about feeding themselves, what they thought it was important to know and understand about food to be able to use it to meet their needs, and where they'd acquired those knowledge and skills over their life course. And I used all of this information to develop a definition, a set of components, and model its relationship to food intake and health. What I came up with was this definition, that it's a collection of interrelated knowledge, skills and behaviours, and that these knowledge, skills and behaviours fitted into these 4 domains, which kind of describe the sequence of skills and behaviours in order to feed yourself, and that there were these 11 components that sat within them. But probably the important part of this was that my conceptualisation was really that this was a scaffolding that empowered you to protect your diet quality through change and give you dietary resilience over time. And if those changes were small, so your circumstances changing from a day of thinking you had time to prepare food and then not having time to prepare food, or whether it was a more macro change, like a change in your food environment. I wanted to kind of be clear that this food literacy in and of itself wouldn't be adequate to change diet quality, but it might make meeting nutrition recommendations more predictable, open up the choices for the individual and make it more pleasurable, but that the strength of that relationship would be limited by the social determinants of health, which in turn would influence the food supply, and early childhood experiences with food, which would influence how that information was acquired. So then I was quite surprised by how that definition and conceptualization was adopted in lots of different places around the world. And my attention then shifted to the development of a tool, and that work's been primarily undertaken by Courtney Thompson, who's my PhD student, who is currently under examination. I think what is really interesting and fascinating to me is that this set of components had resonance for people in low, middle and high income countries, seeking for a whole lot of different outcomes of what eating well meant. So whether that was sustainable diets, traditional eating, or whether that was from a nutrition perspective. So what I wanted to talk to you about a little bit was this importance of conceptual clarity. We've recently done a scoping review of the use of the term food literacy. And we looked a little at nutrition literacy as well. And I think, as was previously discussed, you can see from those components that I see nutrition literacy as being part of food literacy. And certainly when we talk to young people, when they thought of somebody who was good with food, it included someone who was able to kind of balance their food intake to meet their nutrient needs. So this is really just simply to say that the term has gained a lot of popularity and it seems here to stay. When we look at the different use of the term, sometimes, though even there's lots of different definitions that exist, mine is still the most cited. I wouldn't necessarily think that means it's the best one, but it seems to represent the minimum set of things that people think food literacy includes. And I think the next really important stage would be to have some sort of international definition endorsed by an international organisation so that we're all talking about the same thing, measuring about the same thing as well. This is from another author, but it has drawn together just a selection of different definitions. Some of them are for food literacy, some of them are for nutrition literacy, but just to give you a bit of a sense of the different ways that people are conceptualising and organising what the components might be. That's all been for adults. This paper, which is quite recent, did the same thing for children. And I would say what the main difference is that adult conceptualizations seem to be looking at knowledge, skills and behaviours that I need right now to feed myself, whereas ones for children seem to be thinking more about what this future citizen might be. And so I've just pulled out one of those definitions from Denmark that I think kind of exemplifies what a lot of the conceptualizations for children are more about. And you'll see with that last one that that piece around advocacy and taking action on the food system is a key element there. So when we think about adolescence, and I know we've started to do some thinking around this with my research team in Australia, what makes adolescence as a life stage a little bit different is autonomy and responsibility happening in a whole lot of areas of young people's lives, but including around food. So what things are young people given responsibility for? What are the things that they want to do themselves anyway? We started to look at the literature around what it was saying young people were doing and the range of different tasks and how they fitted into those different domains of food literacy. And we found that it was really different. So young people were given responsibility, sometimes for preparation, sometimes for selection, but depended on the context. So they may have been responsible for selecting food at school, but not responsible for selecting food at the markets or in the grocery store at home. They may not have been responsible for the planning out of family meals, but they may have been responsible for doing that when they're out with their friends. So the context seems to be particularly important in adolescence. And then what young people do and what they're responsible for seems to be really skewed by different socio-demographic factors, in particular gender and obviously age, but also family structure. And I think you alluded to that already. I pulled out this, this model that I found interesting from a recent Lancet series on adolescent nutrition that looked around the world at traditional, mixed and modern diets, dietary patterns, and found that modern dietary intake patterns tended to be associated with more autonomy and agency and young people, and that was influencing food choice a lot more, and desirability and convenience were a big part of modern young people's food choices and the things that they were looking for. This paper then, another fairly recent paper, broke down these elements of adolescent eating autonomy and saw these were sort of some key domains for that. And then some factors that increased autonomy were around independent time, time with peers, parental trust and approval, and things that limited that autonomy, limited spending money, parental restriction, etc. So when then we think about how we might be conceptualising this, I find this model of health literacy quite useful because it looks at the development of the literacy over a life course, which I think for young people might be quite useful. Also thinks about the individual and the population, and is looking across the continuum of health care and prevention as well. When we've tried to look at that for young people and look at it for food literacy, we can see how we might come up with a matrix for that. And then also thinking about what the mechanisms for action might be. So obviously the curriculum's a place where you can influence food literacy, but you might also want to look at some key institutions and settings, like what are your advertising standards and your food labelling doing to enhance food literacy in the way that they're communicating better choices? What are the settings that are supporting you to do that? For example, school meals. Okay, really quickly talking about some of the issues around measurement. We started our measure for adults by generating an item pool. We did that by first looking at getting an item pool of existing validated measures. And then we had an international consensus study around that. What was interesting is thinking about what we wanted questions to measure. And whether it was what somebody can do or is confident to do, or what they actually do. So this was our item pool of measures that you might find useful. It has hundreds of items that different academics from around the world then voted on. What we found was that we had a lot more consensus on items that we've been measuring for a long time, so things around food preparation. There was less consensus on things that we haven't been doing for as long. So what are the items that measure the level of literacy that you're after in selecting foods outside the home? We then did cognitive interviews with people around how they did think out loud interviews. So they talked us through their understanding of questions. And again, what was interesting here is that people always defaulted to grocery shopping, their main meal, and home food preparation. And they needed quite a lot of prompting to think about these less planned food purchases, and we know that they are making up more and more of people's dietary intake and more of what the foods that we want to limit and know more about. Also, when people answered knowledge questions, if we asked them around their confidence in their knowledge, they reported that they were very confident that they understood the dietary guidelines, for example. But when they then talked through how they arrived at that answer, we found that their knowledge was flawed. So those confidence questions weren't useful. Then we've gone to the point of actually testing the validity and the reliability of the model on a really large sample size in Australia. And some things that we have found interesting is the scoring. How are we making a decision to say someone has high food literacy? What are we expecting someone, what are we expecting that to be associated with? Again, we've found that the results, the items have not sat together the way we thought, and they sit separately, sometimes against context. So people will answer, they will exhibit food literacy differently depending on whether they're foods at home or foods out. And then finally, we're now doing the analysis on the relationship between food literacy and other food-related behaviours. And I just wanted to finish on pondering these thoughts, that what are we expecting food literacy might be associated with? Would it be ultra-processed foods, sustainable diets, traditional foods, core food consumption? Would we expect it to be associated with food security? And if so, all aspects of food security or just some pillars? Would we be expected it to be associated with health literacy, food citizenship, food sovereignty? And what are the confounders that we might expect from a demographic perspective? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Helen, for such an amazing presentation and giving us some useful insights on importance of food literacy among adolescents. It's a great pleasure to have you here. Now I would like to request.
I think we should allow for a few questions if we have, because
yes.
Dr. Helen is working late in the evening from our office. And then we should give her the choice of leaving if she wants to leave, and she's welcome to stay through the conference. If there are any quick questions for Dr. Helen, I myself have one question, so I had to stop Kiran from proceeding further. You were talking about autonomy among children, promoting that among adolescents and children to choose and buy their own foods. Does that necessarily, increase the chance of them buying healthy or choosing healthy?
Well, it was more, my model's been used a lot in school settings, and that's not what it was designed for. It was not what I was expecting. So we started down this track of maybe we need to develop a model specifically for children and adolescents. And the ones that exist at the moment are very much thinking about this citizen in the future. And I said, I think actually adolescents are responsible for quite a lot of their own food intake, but we don't ever talk about that and we haven't measured that. So we sort of started this process, which we haven't finished yet, of thinking, okay, what proportion of dietary intake are adolescents responsible for, and what is the quality of the foods that adolescents are responsible for, and in what settings are they responsible for them? And we thought that was a fairly simple question. So then but when we went to think about it, we thought, okay, when we're defining responsibility, which of the tasks are we saying means they're responsible? Is it the purchase of it? Is it the preparation? Is it the selection? Is it the planning? And then we found that that was quite a complex thing to think about. And we started to look at the literature of what are people currently talking about in terms of adolescent autonomy. I think it's an area that is, I was really interested to read that Lancet article. I only recently came across that paper that was saying it's actually one of the, I guess, the archetypes of modern eating is that there is more autonomy. Whether or not that's a good thing, I'm not sure. But it's something really I think we probably haven't considered enough.
Yes. Yeah, I think a bit of food autonomy along with, coupled with food literacy, for them to join in the food policy environment making, I think will go a long way than just food autonomy, because when there is autonomy and when there are forces which are largely uncontrolled, it might go a little bit awry. Yeah.
And I think that's been exactly my interest, is I think we haven't scaffolded that autonomy with any skills, and particularly that autonomy seems to start in with peers in fast food outlets, snack foods, and we're not giving enough kind of scaffolding on how to make those choices, because we're thinking they're fairly insignificant, but actually I think they're fairly significant now in young people's diets.
I understand. And there is a question in the Q&A box. It's largely for us. Somebody is asking us, what is the methodology as of now we use and informs the draft policy around salt, sugar, and fat intake in India? And what is the question for Anna? And they are saying, is there any food intake being assessed in India among adolescents? And if so, how it is being done? What nutrition methodology is being used to assess this, and what informs the draft policy on salt, sugar, and it's a discussion that I'll park for later, or I'll type it in the Q&A box. I think in the interest of the time, Kiran will move to the next presentation. And thank you, Dr. Helen, for that very insightful talk. And then it's time, since we do not have scale in Indian context to assess nutrition and food literacy, it's time we also thought of developing one which is more specific to our context. And then we will definitely get in touch with you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, everybody.
We would be very happy if you can stay on and discuss a few things with our adolescent youth leaders. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Helen. Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to request my colleague, Dr. Priyadarshini, to invite our next speaker.
I'm happy to introduce Dr. Gauri Srivastava, who is the Professor and Head, Department of Education and Social Science, NCERT, New Delhi. Madam has done MA and MPhil from Jawaharlal Nehru University and PhD from Delhi University. She has received multiple national and international scholarships, including Indian Council of Historical Research, Indian Council of Social Science Research, George Eckert Institute for International Textbook Research, Germany, Asian Scholarship Foundation, Bangkok. Her primary research area of research includes girls' education and women's empowerment, gender analysis of textbooks at elementary stage, NCERT. She has contributed more than 100 research papers, articles and modules, and chapters in books. Now I invite Madam to speak on the topic, Scope of Nutrition Education in the Existing School Curriculum and Ayushman Bharat Scheme for Adolescents. Over to you, ma'am.
First of all, I express my gratitude to the organizer for giving me this opportunity for speaking on the theme that is, very important and crucial, especially when we talk about newer ways of promoting nutritional literacy. I want to say that here I will be speaking more from my experience and my engagement with Ayushman Bharat, and also understanding why today we are talking about nutrition literacy among this critical mass that is in the transient phase of development. Two things came to my mind when you invited me first. Are we seeing adolescence as atypical, or is it a journey of continuum from childhood to the adulthood? One, I think all the eminent speakers here would agree with me that investment at the early stage, the foundational stage, is perhaps very important and then sets the space for making literacy important, because foundational stage, the stakeholders become more important in guiding what one should have taken as a diet and what one should not have. But at this critical juncture, it is the adolescent who becomes the decision maker of deciding what to have and what not. What should a balanced diet plate constitute is a decision that today our adolescents, I think most, you have a panel discussion, will be able to deliberate upon from their experience. Now, when you talk about the policy and the curriculum, yes, our national education policy has, in fact, given primacy to health and wellness, because it sees that every child from different contexts is able to contribute to the body of knowledge and is able to sustain himself, herself throughout their journey of mortal existence. Now, when you talk of nutrition literacy, from all my experience, I decided to put it under 5 important approaches, which I think is important to make literacy not only something which is awareness oriented, knowledge oriented, but it should instill amongst each one of us, because we also in a way educate and transmit awareness about our knowledge of nutrition. Putting my own years of growing, I felt the first approach that should focus upon is gain and losses. This I said was the first approach, because when we talk about why nutrition, it's very important to understand what constitutes a nutritive diet. We are a diverse country and we have a cultural context. Adolescents are not homogeneous. They are a diverse population which needs to be addressed from a diverse approach. Therefore, the literacy should take into context the location of the adolescent, the cultural context that influences the food habits. And the third important thing is the idea to bring a change, because we want that communicable and non-communicable diseases have to be addressed in a sustained manner. It's not just one poster making or just a message, but it has to percolate down to make the beneficiaries understand that knowledge, awareness, internalization, and practice are substantially related, because it's the doable that has to be focused upon. In many of my field visits with several of Government of India schemes, which I am very fortunate to have, the awareness is there in place. Many of our residential schools have placed on the walls the dietary intake, which is definitely from the perspective of locally grown food items. The second important thing is the time when to take. That is also crucial. But my field studies have shown the relationship of gains. Gains because food, the method of cooking, the intake time, and how do we actually convert the nutrition into energy giving, body building, and a food item that helps us in resisting communicable and non-communicable disease. So here today on this important occasion, I feel that nutrition literacy on doables should emphasize upon. The losses are the ones where we know about it, but the taste buds dominate. And therefore, in many contexts of my field experience, we feel that, it is the taste bud that dominate, and therefore eating something that may not be nutritive becomes important. So if the losses have to be addressed, the children of this impressionable age have to be constantly reinforced through messages, whether it could be in the local language, whether it could be through music, through any creative way, where they get convinced that what I'm eating is actually not rich in terms of calories, in terms of fiber content, in terms of bodybuilding and energy giving. And yes, in pandemic, I'm sure each one of us, you can ask the adolescent leaders who have joined what they did and why they did is important to make this approach of gains and losses more of win-win rather than loss on the development stage in terms of physical, emotional, and mental, because this approach would look into all of them in a relationship manner. The second method that I thought and approach once again is related to confidence, coping method, and capacity building. Here in my engagement with Ayushman Bharat, which is a very promising initiative of Government of India, which covers all states and union territories, a module, 11 modules have been prepared, and one module focuses on nutrition and health and wellness, because to me they are intricately related. A literacy program talking about the food, nutrition of a particular component would be enough for the stage of awareness, but how is related to health and wellness is something that we need to focus upon. And therefore, in our capacity building program throughout the country, which we are working in collaboration with Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, it's a joint initiative where both the ministries are involved in capacity building of stakeholders, where the message of nutrition, health, and wellness is actually percolated to the school. The school ambassadors are specially appointed to promote this message to everybody in the schooling context, as just now some of my eminent speakers have talked about the schooling being very important, the curriculum being very important. And this is how Ayushman Bharat tries to make the schooling processes sensitive towards health, wellness, as well as nutrition. Every activity of the school is actually linked with the promotion of how to remain healthy. And the third important thing is the health electronic card to monitor the health of the child, to see what it is, whether it is anemia, whether it is obesity, whether it is related to any other diseases, waterborne, to find out what are the plug points so that course corrective can be taken. In my own field visits, as I said earlier, as my research study on two of the schemes of our government, one is the Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalaya scheme, the ashram schools that I had done in the state of Chhattisgarh, where I found that the children had cards with them, and the warden was regularly monitoring what was the ailment that need to be focused on. Therefore, our literacy program on nutrition should take into the context the diversity of the learners, as well as what are the plug points that need to be addressed. While the attempt is universalistic, no doubt, I must congratulate that nutrition and health concerns each one because it is the kernel of development. But let me tell you, nutrition should have a small message, a particularistic message of context specificity, so that diversity is taken into account. The nutritional need of children are diverse, whether it's a boy, a girl, and it could be transgender, children with special needs, they all come into that gambit. So universalistic and particularistic in terms of the segment of the population that we are trying to address. Today, it is important because we have to nurture our, strengths of population, our growing population, and therefore nurturing them into the best possible way is something we need to look upon. I do agree with my earlier speaker who was just mentioned that we need to evolve indicators. Therefore, I feel that the second approach on confidence and coping mechanism should in itself have an indicator for the self, to administer it to every child. And the message should be, know yourself, know your strength. And if that is there, know yourself, know your strength, in itself is it implicit about the food intake, the activities that you engage with. Because many of our children, as rightly said, that today in our policy, we are talking about multidisciplinary approach, where curriculum, co-curriculum, there is flexibility. No area is seen as separateness. It is integrated. And the spirit of sportsmanship is what we need to emphasize. And therefore, when we talk about nutrition, the confidence and capacity building approach makes each stakeholders, including peers, teachers, people like us who are deliberating today, join together to make the beneficiaries realize that if I'm well, if I'm nutritively strong, then I'm contributing to my family, to the community, to the state, as well as nation. The third approach that I want to speak today is on self-awareness and motivation. While we deliberate upon nutrition literacy, today it is the awareness. I may be attending a seminar, I may be in the classroom context reading a chapter because our science textbook have a section on encouraging the beneficiaries to know about the nutritional component of each of the food item that a person takes, whether it's energy giving, body building, immunity resistance. What are locally available food? What one should take to resist anemia? What one should eat to address issues of obesity? But today it is, how do I do it? How do I get convinced to apply it in my life? If I have a fast food platter in front of me and sprouts and fruits and vegetables, what should I eat? The choice that guides us is totally individual centric, and every adolescent boy and girl are absolutely aware today. Who does not want to look good? Who does not want to contribute? Who does not want to be healthy and well, healthy and strong? So this is the third approach that I would deliberate upon based on my experience and my training as one of the members of the Ayushman Bharat module with different stakeholders and key resource persons. The other approach that I would focus upon is disseminating of promising initiative. There's no dearth that our government is deliberating upon very good initiatives, Poshahan Abhiyan, then you have midday meal scheme, so many Ayushman Bharat, there is no dearth. But when it gets disseminated, the agency that disseminates it and the agency for which it is made, the gap between that has to be reduced. And therefore, it becomes motivational if each of one of us participates selflessly and feels one with them. I have seen in many contexts that it is the selflessness that is also and a spirit of volunteerism. In one of my field visits, I found parents coming and substantiating what the children are eating, given during the breakfast or the food. They say, Madam, this is grown in our field. There is umpteen amount of it, whether it is a fruit or some cereal item, and this is how they add on. So this is self-awareness, motivational of both the person who disseminates and the community and the stakeholder who have to join. A literacy program on nutrition is a joint initiative of all, where each one of us feels responsible and reflects. Someone told me, Madam, what the message is very repetitive. Okay, it may be repetitive, but what is important is the reinforcement and doables. Today, we all know that media is all pervasive. It influences our choice. It influences our dress sense, the food we eat. So many things are happening. We cannot control, but we can, as a thinking person, in wherever we are, to decode messages which are very important. I may see something being cooked in the YouTube, but if I know that it's not good for me, I should be able to understand and probably disseminate through an agency that can build confidence. Who but the peers? And I must congratulate the adolescent leaders who are here, who will be the messenger, and strengthen our cascade model to make the bottom-up approach very realistic and make nutrition a part of our life. The other last approach is monitoring and evaluation, because this approach would focus upon all initiatives that are in place. This will give us an insight into what are the issues that need to be plugged in, because a scheme covers so many things. It has training, it has allocation, it has material development. We need to identify the strengths of which is the most convincing, because one that convinces sustains. I and you are sitting here, but there are certain things that we may like to, internalize and keep it up. Sustenance and talking about it for a betterment of society, a better tomorrow, would require convincing. Therefore, there could be many things, because here I'm speaking more from the point of view of my experiences, my being engaged with Ayushman Bharat. We have a Nishtha program also, which is a capacity building program for, for different teachers and key resource person, where we have a designated module on health wellness, which has component of nutrition. So it is a multi-pronged strategy that we adopt here, from material to training, and then to monitoring and evaluation through our program. And let me say here that I'm part of the National Population Education Project housed at the Department of Education and Social Sciences, that actually uh, uses this module on Ayushman Bharat to bring the capacities building agencies with us for making health, wellness, and nutrition an integral part of growing up. I would like to sum up, I have taken a lot of time. That is, health is for all, nutrition is for all. It's inclusive and an equitable agenda, not only for Asia, but across the world. Every adolescent child in the growing years is special for each one of us today. And we want holistic personality development, because the child should be able to communicate, should be able to reflect, should be able to say that he or she is, not feeling well or not wanting to do this, because we want the agency of voice to become important, especially in the domain of nutrition. Intervention that looks into diversity and context, and therefore the basket approach of seeing what is affordable, what I convinces what I can take, because we have diversity of food which are very rich. I don't think I have to give you each and every item that we all know about. Then focus on locally available resource and re-emphasizing it to be part of our diet. With nutrition, the relationship of cooking, the time of eating, hygiene and sanitation are also interlinked. And we need to look into all pollution is not just affecting the land, the air and the water, but it's impacting the very human body and our biosphere. Therefore, for a better quality of life, let us resolve uh, in a focused manner, respect plurality of approach, both micro and macro concerns, address challenges in a sustained manner, move from textual to contextual situation, encourage learners to read the expiry date, the labels that are given, so that many a times the certain food items are eaten without looking into these labels, which are equally important, and community participation perhaps is very important. Therefore, let's join hands today on this important day to make health, wellness, nutrition as part of our daily lived life for shaping a better tomorrow. I'm once again thankful to each one of you, and it's learning for me because I am from the social science, and if I adopt the integrated approach, I join with you all, and I'm very grateful for learning from so many of you. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for explaining such a complicated and intricate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Srivastav, thank you so much for bringing in the perspective of NCERT and also the government, Ayushman Bharat, and also the gains losses approach, and then the capacity building and evolving indicators and all these, which are very important. I think taking this forum as a very, very important place, Dr. Preeto and I would want you to be an integral part of this initiative of Let's Fix Our Food. And we would be very happy if NCERT joined hands with us along with Ayushman Bharat. It would be extraordinary for the entire consortium to work together. And Dr. Preetu herself has a question to ask, and then we can move to the next presentation after that.
Thank you, Dr. Subbarao. You actually said what I meant to say. But I have a question also, Dr. Gauri, that if you can also share from where we can access this nutrition module, which is a part of the 11 module of the Ayushman Bharat. I'm sure the young girls and boys who are part of this webinar would be really interested. So if you can share the link in the chat.
Okay. Definitely, I will share the link. This is available on our website. But since you have asked, please give me some time. I will share the link, and we will feel very rewarded that a material like this is also being shared or today. Definitely, sure. The entire module is with me. The soft copy is also there. But if you give me time, I'll do it. Okay.
Sure. Thank you. Most grateful.
Thank you, ma'am. And also, please consider a request of being part of the consortium. Yes. And take forward our 1 million survey to many schools so that we understand what children are consuming and what is prompting children to consume what they are consuming. Whether healthy or unhealthy doesn't matter, but what are the greatest prompts so that we can act together on them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the time, Dr. Gauri. I hope you will stay on for the panel discussion with the adolescents, which I'm sure is going to be interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I will it is on my mobile. So yeah, I will definitely, it will be a great interest to know the voices. Definitely.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Yeah, please go ahead, Reshma.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gauri, for explaining such an intricate learnings in just 5 approaches. Like, I'm pretty sure everybody, including the adolescents, remember what you said. Going ahead, our next speaker is the spokesperson of Team Ekjut. Ekjut is a 20-year-old non-profit organization working towards building the healthier communities. It has worked on nutrition, health, education of adolescents for multi-level health mitigation. Under their Transform program, interventions are delivered by a community youth team on adolescent groups to build youth leadership, livelihood promotion, mental well-being, and to improve school enrollment and dietary diversity among the adolescent girls. Ms. Subhashi Samal, welcome. I welcome you to tell us about the adolescent health initiatives and the key learning from your program.
Thank you, Reshma. And first of all, I would like to say thank you very much for inviting Ekjut and making us part of this dialogue. And let me tell you, I'll just share an brief overview of the intervention. But the major speaker is our adolescent, I'm joined by our adolescent Vishal, and he will share his experience on nutrition meetings and nutrition programs. So can I share this? I have a PowerPoint presentation. Just allow me to share.
Yes, sure.
So is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
So Ekjut just completed its 20 years of foundation day, and all our meetings happens under this canopy of trees. So just I find this this to share with you all. And moving to overview of participatory peer-led intervention of adolescent health in Jharkhand. So why focus on adolescent and how? So as we all know, investing adolescent health has triple dividend effects that it improves present and futures and future generation. So, and gender inequalities in adolescent, need for community approaches to adolescent health that cut across multiple sectors. Engaging with both girls and boys can loosen hegemonic gender norms that feed inequity. So our acronym for GIA is Jharkhand Initiative for Adolescent Health, which is RCT trial intervention started in 2017 with the aim of developing and testing a scalable peer-led community intervention using participatory learning and action approach to improve health, nutrition, and well-being of adolescent in Khunpani block, which is under Westingham district of Jharkhand. So this intervention has 3 components, and first I would like to share about participatory adolescent group. This has 4 mini cycles covering 4 thematic development issues like education, nutrition, mental health, and health. And the second complementary activity was youth leadership that involves cultural and sports activities to build self-efficacy, communication skills, decision making, and problem solving skills to promote adolescent health, and livelihood promotion activities that includes farming and developing nutrition guidance and environment management. So with whom the participants were from 10 to 19 age group, adolescent boys, girls, both school and in school and out of school adolescent, which is under like predominantly Ho tribe community, and their parents were also involved in the process. So this intervention was delivered through community youth team that has a peer facilitator, youth promoter, and livelihood promoter were part of this intervention, who delivered in 40,000 population in Khunpani block. So there were intervention and control arm in all cluster. In all cluster control arm, there were family-based livelihood involving their parents and siblings in these activities, and in intervention cluster, there were PLA meetings with adolescent group along with leadership activities. So the youth leadership activities included lessons on riding bicycles, adolescent organizing football tournament. Here the football tournament is very popular and most played sports here. Nature walk, street plays, campaign, environmental management of environment issues, youth festival, and skill building workshops. So the livelihood promotion activities included some non-farming activities, that is mostly on organic farming practices, developing homestead gardens, reactivating Kishan Samitis, multi-cropping, wastewater management, linking farmers with agriculture schemes and services. So apart from this, we conducted events and activities integrating core themes in education, gender equity, health, and environment. Here you can see the pictures like that. We organize this their annual program called Judi Jumur, and we conducted such activities with adolescent group, and we invite all leaders, local leaders, parents, and all key stakeholders in this program. So this is basically to develop their problem solving skill, resilience, and their confidence in for better well-being. What is participatory learning and action? This has 4 phases. This participatory empowering strategy is circular, where the community groups become planners, implementers. They identify problems, find feasible solutions, and implement strategies and evaluate together. And these are structured monthly meetings that the groups undergo, and the trained facilitator facilitate these meetings. So in adolescent GI initiative, we co-created 4 such mini cycles. So under nutrition mini cycle, this was to promote nutritional well-being and prevent nutrition-related issues, would help adolescents in creating an enabling environment for healthy body and healthy mind. So this is a meeting that usually happens in the community, where this is a food group meeting that adolescents and are discussing about the various local food groups. Under nutrition, we conducted meetings like assessment of nutritional status of adolescent, identification and prioritization of problems affecting nutrition, understanding causes and finding feasible strategies, mapping local available foods, developing a kitchen guide, planning for community sharing, and review and updating strategies. And for this, all these meetings, these are adult learning tools have been used, like storytelling, games, and games were used in these meetings. So here the adolescent says, like, I grow my food to enhance my food plate and improve my well-being. Some insights I would like to say, because due to COVID, our trial, we had to stop, and the trial was suspended. And however, I would like to share some insights and key learnings from the intervention. Intervention similar is aligned, that is quite aligned to RKSK. Peer-led component can be delivered feasibly and is acceptable to rural communities. No indication of harm for any outcome. Effects on education indicate a likely move in the right direction. Difficult to influence food intake and nutritional status without substantial improvement to food access or family income. Supply side issues regarding nutrition and health services. also was an issue during we found during the intervention. So evidence and learning, this is a multifaceted and a comprehensive intervention through structured monthly meetings with a variety of activities was key to the successful delivery. It acted as a platform to increase footfalls at adolescent-friendly health clinics. All three components and the approach were popular, well attended by young people and their families, improved attendance at school, reduction in dropout, availing of school-related entitlements were encouraging. Sustained participation of adolescent boys indicates that possibilities of future research. This Yuva Sathi, the adolescent facilitators are an asset. Like they were the key in delivering all meetings and activities in the field. And during COVID, it was quite well appreciated that they supported very much during this COVID period to adolescent in nutritional and in reaching the availing the nutritional and health services. And effective prevention and treatment and advocacy in mental health and well-being requires that young people are understood as active participant, not merely as recipient. By facilitating young people's engagement and active participation in their own health and nutrition and well-being, there are clear indication of better outcomes overall. When young people are given defined role and context-specific training and guidance, they can provide highly specialized, sustainable, and scalable mental health and well-being solution. Not just focusing 15 to 19 years old, younger adolescent matters too, as well as boys. So this is all about adolescent health initiative. Now मैं अभी request करूंगी विशाल को, वो अपना अनुभव share करेंगे. विशाल.
धन्यवाद सुभाश्री.
विशाल, आप स्टार्ट करने से पहले एक बार हमारे लोग आपको इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे, उसके बाद आप आपका राय बोलिएगा. प्लीज 1 मिनट में आपको इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे. For the benefit of those who do not know Hindi, Vishal will be speaking in Hindi. We will try and give a gist of his presentation later. Vishal will be introduced before he speaks. Kiranmai, who's introducing Vishal?
Yes, sir. I'm introducing.
Reshma.
Yeah, sorry, Reshma.
Hello, I'm so happy to introduce you to our first adolescent youth leader, who is Vishal Laguri. He is a class 10 student under Project Ucha Vidyalay Kutpani. He loves football and he also excels in his academics. He belongs to the Ho tribe community from the West Singham district of Jharkhand. विशाल जी, आपका हार्दिक स्वागत है. आप प्लीज हमें बताइए कि जो पोषण के बारे में जो जानकारी आपके लिए उपलब्ध है आपके टेक्स्ट बुक में, आपके स्कूल में, तो उससे रिलेटेड आपको क्या कहना है और उसका उपयोग आप आपके लाइफ में कैसे करते हैं.
सबों को जोहार. मेरा नाम विशाल लगुरी, 10वीं कक्षा में पढ़ता हूँ. गांव अंबराय, जिला पश्चिम सिंहभूम, प्रखंड कुटपानी. पोषण बैठक के बारे में हम लोग बात करना चाहता हूँ. जो सीख हम मिला, जिसमें गांव में मिलने वाला हरा साग सब्जी के विषय में बातचीत किया था. तरह तरह का हरा साग सब्जी खाना चाहिए और मौसमी के हिसाब मौसमी फल फूल भी खाना चाहिए. उनकी कमी ना हो. हाथ अच्छी तरह से धोकर खाना खा और लड़का लड़की बराबर खाना मिले. कुपोषण चक्र टूटे. पहले परिवार के सभी लड़कों को पहले देते थे. पोषण बगान में लगाने के बारे में बातचीत करते हैं. अब लगभग 100 परिवार में बनाया है. अमराय में जैसे कुंदूरी, बरवाटी, करेला, मुनगा और पपीता लगाया है.
बहुत ही अच्छे विशाल जी, खूब खूब धन्यवाद। सो
शरीर के
विशाल,
लिए भी
ओके,
बाहर का चीजें नहीं खाना है। चिप्स खाने से मोटापा बढ़ता है और भूख भूख नहीं लगता, शरीर के लिए भी नुकसान है। और ट्रैकिंग भी करते हैं, पर्यावरण विषय में भी चर्चा करते हैं। जंगल से मिलने वाला साग, फल फूल, प्लास्टिक का उपयोग नहीं करना है, जंगल से बचेंगे। कोविड के बीच में भी बातचीत किया था, अपना बगान का ही चीजें खाने के लिए बात किया था। अपना बातों को यहीं पर समाप्त करता हूँ, धन्यवाद।
Vishal ji, so just giving a gist of what Vishal said. So Vishal is telling about how the community gatherings and how what are the learnings that he has learned. He has also mentioned that in his village more than 100 households have started their own kitchen garden, and kitchen garden is also promoted during COVID. The COVID norms were also given during these community gatherings, and he is also talking about the male female equality, since in rural areas the males are given first priority when it comes to food, and whatever is left over, the woman eats if it is left. But here he says that that should not happen, and women and male and female should sit together during dinner or lunch or during the meal times. विशाल जी, थैंक यू सो मच। आप मुझे जो किचन गार्डन है जो आपके घर के आंगन में जो परस बाग लगाया हुआ है, तो उसमें आपने बताया कि पपीता लगाया, आपके जो फल सब्जी लगाए, तो ये आपके गांव में जो जितने भी परिवारों में लगाया है, क्या ये सिर्फ आप ही खाते हैं या फिर उससे आपको कुछ उत्पादन भी आता है, मतलब बेचते हैं क्या वो
ज्यादा होने
सब्जी?
से भी हम लोग बेचते हैं।
अच्छा, तो आपको वो एक इनकम सोर्स भी आता है, कुछ पैसे भी आ जाते हैं, सही बात है। और कौन से साग, आपको कौन से साग खाने पसंद है?
पपीता और सब खाते हैं।
अच्छा, तो आपने ये भी मैंने देखा था पोस्टर कि आपको कोई भी लत वाली चीजें नहीं, कोई भी एडिक्शन वाली चीजें आपको नहीं खानी है। तो आप मुझे बताइए कि आप अगर आपके गांव में कुछ आपके उम्र के बच्चों को अगर कुछ कहना चाहेंगे कि आपको मन से लगता है कि ऐसे होना ही नहीं चाहिए, तो आपका ऐसे एक दो चीजें क्या होंगी? कि कोई भी चीज कि आपको अभी जैसे आपने बताया कि चिप्स वगैरह नहीं खाना चाहिए, तो आप खाते हैं?
नहीं खाते हैं।
अरे वाह, बहुत अच्छी बात है, श्योर नहीं खाते। ठीक है। तो आप मुझे बताइए कि आप बाकी आपके दोस्तों से क्या बोलेंगे? चिप्स नहीं खाना चाहिए या फिर सिगरेट तंबाकू बीड़ी नहीं पीना चाहिए, और क्या बोलेंगे आपके दोस्तों को?
हम लोग उसके बदले चना अंडा वो सब खाएंगे।
वेरी नाइस, वेरी नाइस, बहुत ही अच्छा है। आपको तो बहुत 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 पता है, बहुत ही अच्छी बात है, एंड अप्लॉज फॉर यू। आप जरूर रुकिएगा, हमारा आगे भी एक बहुत सारे एडोलेसेंट्स है जो उनका जो राय है वो शेयर करेंगे, जरूर रुकिएगा। ठीक है, थैंक यू विशाल जी।
थैंक यू विशाल। Vishal has joined us from a remote village of Khunpani block, which is like from 20 kilometer distance from Chakradarpur town. So thank you, Vishal. Yeah.
Thank you.
Going ahead with our adolescent and the panel discussion that we all are waiting for today. Over to you, Kiranmai.
Yeah. So the panel discussion.
Yeah, I will just introduce the panel discussion as we thought, because in my earlier remarks also I said that this is a platform meant for providing an avenue for adolescents to speak their mind and then become an integral part of their own food environment and then make decisions for themselves and then if PHFI had actually launched these initiative of shaping some adolescent youth leaders along with the UNICEF Yuva program. And there are 50 odd youth leaders identified from across the country. And these people are volunteering to build nutrition awareness and nutrition communities around them, and then getting more and more adolescents engaged and involved in their food choices and their own shaping their own food environments. Today being a Children's Day, the platform is entirely theirs, while the discussion will be moderated by Kiranmai and Reshma. We will also chip in with our questions if we have any. And this is an open invitation for other panelists if you want to have a freewheeling discussion with the adolescents. But we will quickly do a few questions to each of them, since there are about 5 of them and we have very little time to go. We'll give more time and place an avenue to them to put forth their views. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, it's my pleasure to invite and introduce our young and dynamic adolescent youth leaders. So Ms. Prisha Saxena is from Lakshadam High School, Mumbai, and Ms. Navya Mehta is from the Shri Ram School, Maulsari, and Mr. Advait is from Delhi Public School, Hyderabad, and Ms. Claudia Sun is from Indian Institute of Public Health, Shillong, and Ms. Aisha Maz is from Nasir School, Hyderabad. All of them are very enthusiastic to understand and to learn more about nutrition information and education.
Can we have their cameras on, please? Sorry. Can we have their cameras on, if it is okay with that?
Yeah. All the adolescent youth leaders, kindly switch on your cameras.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. So now we have a very interesting panel discussion. So yeah, so my first question to Ms. Claudia. Yeah, I would like to know, like, what are your sources of nutrition information?
Claudia, request you to please switch on your mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Claudia, you're
okay.
audible. Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, almost evening. Good evening to everyone who's present here. So the question you asked me is like my sources are regarding nutrition information is maybe from internet, family members, friends, television, books, even in schools, like in which they are providing nutrition education, maybe in health and biology, especially also in which nutrition education is provided, and also through social medias, and where we can learn also from maybe if we go to some any other health facilities, we can learn from the posters such as IEC and all.
Yes, that's really nice to know, Claudia. Would anyone would like to discuss more about this? Any adolescent?
We'll move on to the next.
Okay. Is Aisha here? Aisha Mal?
Yeah, she's here.
Hello, Aisha. Welcome. So I just wanted to know, as an adolescent, so much of nutrition information is available, right? So do you think that this nutrition information is of any use?
Firstly, it's a very big moment of joy for me, and I have a lot of gratitude. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. And could you please repeat the question?
So my question was that so much of nutrition information is available from your textbooks, from the internet, all the digital platforms. Do you think that this availability of information, too much availability of information, is it of any use? And if a yes, then how?
It is, because we are getting to learn more about how nutrition exactly is, about the different types of diseases that may affect us and how we could prevent them, which is mainly good food, I believe. And yeah.
Okay, that's good. I just would take this opportunity to say to mention that Aisha is also into healthy cooking, and she tries to just shift using natural products instead of synthetic ones. Okay, would you like to say something about that? That why are you choosing something which is natural instead of synthetic products?
So, firstly, it is to make it healthy, of course. My mother, who is a nutritionist, she helps me make my recipes even better. For example, instead of using all-purpose flour, I use whole wheat atta, wheat, in my cakes. And instead of using butter, I use olive oil. Instead of sugar, there is honey in my cakes. So this makes it a ton healthier. And the way I try to bake it, it is also quite toothsome in that way. And I try not to use icing, even though it makes it look 10 times more tempting or tastier. I feel that my cakes can still be tasty without icing.
Surprising to know that an adolescent is speaking this language, and I'm really really very proud to have you here, Aisha.
Thank you.
Going to the next adolescent.
Yes. Hi, Advait. As a youth leader and being associated with these nutrition projects, do you think your knowledge on nutrition status has improved? Do you implement that knowledge in your daily life?
I feel like so it's very easy to know. I feel like me and all my peers have like an excellent knowledge on like junk food and like good food, and like they can differentiate between them. But the practical application towards actually actually following a certain good diet and avoiding these distractions of like processed food which contain high fats, salts, and sugars, which are extremely tempting, is a tough road. And I myself struggle, but I do try my best to avoid eating outside and avoid consuming processed food and mostly stick to home food, which is my dad as a nutrition scientist. So so the food at home is pretty good. So I rather prefer to stick with home food. But sometimes, yeah, it is tempting. But I feel like we've all tried to overcome the temptations and we're slowly getting there.
That's really nice to know, Advait. It's very interesting to know about this. But how do you curb your cravings? Like you said, you really enjoy home cooked food and all, but I think once in a while, everyone would love to,
Yeah,
binge on something.
it's not bad if we eat junk food or processed food once in a while, but whenever you have cravings for like salts or like sugars, I just tend to eat something which is something which is sugary but like better, which is homemade and which is not processed and does not have like ingredients which are preservatives and stuff. So instead of actually choosing, I generally love spicy food. So instead of choosing like food which is spicy, like Korean food or something like that from outside, I'd rather prefer homemade spicy food, which also fills the cravings, but and also satisfies your taste buds.
That's really nice to know your inputs, Advait. I think this is a very important message that every adolescent should, follow. Yes. Can we move to the next
Awesome.
question? Yeah.
Yes. So my next question is to Prisha. Prisha, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
So Prisha, welcome once again. I wanted to know if this nutrition information do you think that it's essential? Whatever nutrition information and nutrition knowledge that you get from schools or internet, do you think it's essential?
First up, I wanted to apologize for my voice. My throat is not at the best condition. And as for your question, I'm in ninth grade, and at this point, schools like when a student is studying in ninth or in tenth, I think schools they focus more on the studies to decide the future course. So as a student, I don't think that I get enough information on nutrients from my textbooks or from like anywhere. Um, when I first when I first participated in this, I had no knowledge about nutrients or food literacy until I started adapting and started understanding what everybody has to say here. And after that, and I think the information which is given in textbooks, they only give us the effects of lack of nutrients in a body, but they don't really say their importance. And because of that, it becomes a problem for the people, adults or adolescents, to be mentally exposed of how much quantity can a fat or sugar in a food product be. So for example, if there's 100 grams of sugar in a cookie packet, even if a person knows the number, they are not mentally exposed or they're not mentally aware of how much that 100 grams of sugar can take a toll on your body. And it can then lead to obesity and various diseases. So I think that if there's another way that there can, like, where the educational institutes can provide information on the importance of nutrients, that would be a lot of helpful. But as of now, I don't think that the information given us is not is like important.
Okay. So that's a really prominent point that you just highlighted. Thank you, Prasha, for this. Next adolescent is
Yes.
Naya.
Yeah. The next adolescent is Miss Naya. Hi, Naya. So my
Good
question to you.
evening.
Hi, good evening. So on what basis do you make your food choices? Is it driven by health or taste or status?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your question. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been an enlightening webinar and talk. To answer your question, I think there are three different ways I choose to make my food. Obviously, as a teenager, you want to eat fun, you want to eat, something that's junk. But at the same time, I think that the education that I received, whether through these nutrition programs or through the internet, I know that conserving my health and taking care of it, especially at when I'm at this developing age, is extremely important. So I usually try to take decisions regarding my food based on whether how healthy the food is. At the same time, I think it's also really important that we strike a balance between eating healthy food and eating junk food. And I think that my choices regarding that balance also come from both education and also obviously taste. I'm a bit of a foodie, so I can't control myself there. But I think what a lot of these nutrition programs have taught me is that when you're picking food, say for example, you're picking something that's healthy or non-healthy, or unhealthy, considerably unhealthy, it's you make educated decisions about that, whether it's from looking at front of pack labeling, which by the way in India is a bit of a mess. We're obviously working on policy regarding that right now, but definitely these nutrition programs have taught me to look more closely at front of pack labeling. Like if I can give a small example that I think everybody will sort of know. As teenagers, we're often told if you want to have chocolate, you should have dark chocolate because it has antioxidants. It's good. It's better for health. And so before I really got into like the Fix Our Food initiative, I started learning in depth about what advertisers do to make you pick food to make it seem appealing. I often used to read, it's 70% dark chocolate. That's a lot of dark chocolate. It definitely must be good. But I'm definitely going through these, being educated about nutrition and making healthy choices has led me to ask the question, what's the other 30%? So it's questions such as these that I've learned through programs, through discussions, and through by taking away knowledge from webinars such as these, to actually realize it's nothing but sugar. So is it that healthy anymore? So my nutrition choices are basically based on asking questions such as these, and sort of striking a balance between the healthy and the unhealthy, and sort of developing a taste for more healthier food by obviously like Aisha does, maybe cooking it in a way we like. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Naya. Actually, I want to take this opportunity and ask all of you this one question. That now, since you said that, okay, the nutrition information is available a lot, we know on the internet. So do you literally, rely on these kind of information, or you go and search for yourself that is this information valid or not? Each person.
I can take that question. Yes. I can start off with that. I think that there are two ways about going. There's two ways to go about it. So obviously there are places where you have like nutrition. You get information about nutrition, especially say for example on social media, because nowadays youth is really interested in what's actually healthy food. How do you cook at home and make it healthier? Just living a more healthier lifestyle. So there's a lot of information we get there, and I think that most of the times, like at least before I started really learning about what was fake news, what was fake information on the internet, I would take everything as it was, like on I would just take it as it was. But I think now that I've gotten a little older, obviously had a bit of unhealthy food, gone through a phase where I wasn't really eating that healthy and have started building up my health again. I think that there's a sort of two-way process. No matter what information you get, even if it's from a supposedly really good source, unless it's like directly from a nutritionist or a doctor or somebody who's an expert, you usually go back to somebody like maybe your doctor or your school nurse or your science teachers, or even just on the internet. You learn to sort between fake news and what's actually real by looking through multiple sources, which obviously is a bit of a tedious process, especially when it's something about, say, something that's not commonly known, like for example, black rice. It's an extremely healthy sort of rice that's eaten by the Eastern Indian population. So the first time I heard about it, I thought it was completely fake news. To actually verify that, I had to go through so many processes. It was a bit tedious, but I think that I've obviously learned how to shorten that now that I know what sources are relevant, what are not.
Wow, Naya, it was really pleasing thought that you know about black rice. There are so many types of rice, and we only know like few: white rice and basmati rice. Okay, same question to Advait and Aisha.
Can you repeat the question because I could not hear you that.
Sorry, Prasha.
Could you please repeat the question? Because
okay, so my question was, with so much of information available, do you go and check whether that information is valid, or you just trust it blindly?
I first check if it's valid, because at first I used to trust it blindly because I was like, who will ask as a kid. But then later I found out that I have been catfished a couple of times, and because of that, I do not trust every site which I visit. And when it comes to the topic of taking care of my diet, I usually go and prefer a nutritionist, especially a nutritionist. So I have been working with her since I was in 6th grade, and because of that, I don't really prefer or refer to any of the social media sites, because to be honest, I really don't trust them, neither does my mom. And so I think that being with a nutritionist and preferring with them is a much better way, because they can actually have an idea, a physical idea of what your body needs and what your body does not need. And according to that, they can plan out a diet. So, and the thing is, see, when you go and prefer social media, it's like you can't even trust it, because they do not know your body, they do not know your requirements. And no matter how many times you search up on Google that what do you need, what intakes do you need for this kind of body, they can never understand it, because they do not know your how your body is physical, like what's your physical status. So I think being with a nutritionist is much more better than trusting social sites.
Exactly. Advait?
Okay. So of course the credibility of the source is extremely important. Like I feel like believing in one source, unless it's reputed, is not really smart. But at the same time, even if a reputed source, for example, I'll give you an example. So there are a lot of fitness sources that recommend you eating 2 or 2.5 times your 2 or 2.5 times the protein that you're actually supposed to take. and yeah, that might be good for certain people who are really into fitness, but like me, who's just started gym, who's just started to do small exercises like treadmill and stuff, which is just to keep myself active, is that's not really not a requirement. So a lot of people are mistook and take something like whey protein or like creatine and stuff. So it's pretty good for people who are actually trying to work out, but not for everyone. And like it also did, and it also depends on like the place you live in, the food you get, and your body itself. So it's not only the sources online that matter, but you yourself and like your body and the region you live in and your circumstances, your economic, like social, and everything matters. It's not only just the source.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised having so many very different answers from everybody. Aisha.
So my main source, I rely on my mother completely, who is a nutritionist. Any food questions, I just ask her. And if not, I try to search for multiple sources on the internet. I never trust one because you never know what is fake and what is real on the internet. So it is better to do your research about something, or in my case, just ask my mother.
Wow, that's
Thank
awesome.
you, Aisha. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everybody. Over to Kiran.
Yeah. So there are some interesting questions in the chat box. Is there any peer pressure of eating out unhealthy foods or birthday parties or in school? How do you handle that? Like being a youth leader, do you convince your friends to eat healthy? So, Miss Naya, would you like to answer this?
Absolutely. So I'm a 12th grader, so I've definitely been through that sort of like bullying, peer pressure. Now that I'm almost at the end of it, I know college is going to be it's going to be different, but the peer pressure is still going to be there. So I think there's definitely peer pressure when it comes to being in shape or, being healthy and, sort of a bit of body dysmorphia, especially with girls in India. But I think that now that there's so much information about it online, it's definitely going down. But that being said, there definitely is that sort of peer pressure. I think the best way to sort of deal with that, at least what I have done to the best way I dealt with that is definitely just put my point across. Um, if I don't want to eat something, I just say, guys, you know what, I really don't want to eat this. I'm not feeling well, or I just don't want to eat this. It doesn't seem that good for me. Why don't we just have this, X thing instead? I think the best way to put it forward is that a lot of people, first of all, are not open to the idea of having healthy food, or they label you as being somebody who is too health oriented or is too sort of stuck up when you're not wanting to indulge in like junk food that a lot of children do in school. And I think the best way to go about it is if somebody who is open to discussion or somebody who just doesn't know, then you can just bring it up really naturally that, oh, you know what, I had too much junk food today, don't want to have any more. But most of the times people who are peer pressuring you are not open to things like that. So the best way that I go about it is just say, you know what, maybe next time, maybe later. And I think that after, sometimes when you start doing it, people do realize that. And especially when you come to sort of like 8th, 9th grade, like not the earlier stages of middle school, maybe the later stages of middle school and high school, people start recognizing that, you just don't want to do it and they stop troubling you about it. So it'll definitely take a while, but I think the peer pressure reduces when you start taking action.
Thank you, Naya, for giving your inputs. My next question is to Advait. Which are the alternative platforms you think nutrition information should be given to you and your friends besides school? As a young adolescent leader, what do you think?
The nutrition information that we get in school is generally not much. It's pretty much enclosed to the textbooks, and that too has slowly faded away as we got to like 10th grade, 11th grade. And then now it's like completely over because after we took like our specific streams, it's like completely gone away. But I feel like it shouldn't be part of the textbooks, but like actually part of like an interactive learning sessions that schools or like people can organize. Like not only schools, but like communities and like Generally, people who want to like take part and know more about nutrition and what they have to eat, parents who are conscious about their children's diets can send them to. And then I feel like that's a better way to, because the textbook information is only, see, generally most of us do read just for exams. The textbooks really don't stick with us. But when we have like an interactive session with like people who really convince us that what we're eating is not right and junk food is not the answer, and like we can actually choose between better foods and better diets, I think that's a much better way of learning than just textbooks.
Yeah, thank you, Advait. I think that's a wonderful answer. And
I think
yes,
Kiran will ask this question
yes,
to others also. I think
yes,
this is an
yes.
important question
Sure.
that one of our consortium partners, Dr. Preetu, has posted.
Yes.
What would be the reliable sources for you for nutrition information?
Yes, Miss Claudia, can you please give us your inputs on this?
Yes, ma'am. Can you please repeat the question?
What are the sources? What do you think are the more credible sources for nutrition information? If you want to be a leader and then want to communicate and talk to your peers about nutrition, what is the source from which you would draw and then you would communicate better for them?
I guess because as you can see nowadays, even if we study about, we don't get much information about nutrition education in schools. So maybe if we have some family, that also for me, it depends because I have family members, like from my home side who's a nutritionist. So like it's, I get more information from her than from any other textbooks. Maybe some also we can get also from social media at times, but also that depends, like we don't exactly know if it is reliable information or not. So as you can see, like if I can, as an adolescent youth member, like I can contribute to the society, in which especially not only for us who can like who can learn to read and write, but also for those who are illiterate, like for those adolescents who don't go who are drop out from schools, or like from such a young age they don't understand what to read and what to write. So it's very important if we start from the community by itself, but first and foremost, if it is possible, we can start from the parents, such as the young children also, since if we can explain to them what is healthy food eating, or especially also what are the healthy food eating habits, in which we can also provide them the necessary information, like which kinds of foods are healthy for us, especially from among adults, since this is the point where we can learn to adapt to what kind of food we eat, so that we don't contribute too much junk food, as which in which can we can contribute more to healthy eating food. So it's, as you can see, it's very important, especially if you can see nowadays, because since most of us adolescents, we are eating a lot of junk foods, like we consume them a lot in each day, or not only from our home, but also since we spend most of our times in school and college. From there also, if we can maybe educate them in such a way so that they know what they know, like what is the right amount to eat, so that we won't be too over, like we won't eat too much, like for our body to, in which we won't be able to use that amount of energy in which we obtain from that kind of food. So I guess it's very important to learn only from starting, not only from adolescent age, but also from young children, such as what are the different kinds of food, such as what are the 5 food groups in which it is important for us for healthy eating. But for first and foremost, if we could start from the parents, like educate them what to feed their children from such a young age, it will be very much useful.
Yes, thank you, Claudia. Thank you so much. The same question to Miss Prisha. Yeah, you should unmute. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What do you think are more reliable sources for nutrition information? If you really want to get the right information about nutrition, where would you go? Textbooks or books or internet or Google or
Not
media? Yeah, friends. Yeah.
Yeah, not textbook, more like I would rather have a specialist who like a person who specializes in nutrition and health management conduct a one-on-one session with somebody, or like a one group session. So this so it's like they can collaborate with particular schools, and with that they can create an awareness for like a introduction session for all the students, and those who are interested in further learning for nutrition and management, they can again book a one-on-one session with that organizer. As of textbooks, I think there are few books which my mother has since she's a public health researcher, and those are like a reliable source. But I would not go as far as to say that I would completely depend on them, since again, like I said previously, did not know our physical well-being, or physical state of our body. So I would rather have a nutritionist or a person who specializes in nutrition to hold a one-on-one session.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Prisha. The same question to Ms. Aisha, like which are the alternative platforms you think nutrition information should be given to you and your friends apart from school?
Apart from school, if you know that the information on the internet is correct, then I believe you could go for that if it has been certified that it is true. And so far, we haven't learned much in grade 7 about nutrition. But I believe the internet would be a good source if the information there is true.
Yes, thank you so much. Now I'd like to request Dr. Subbarao sir to give the five key takeaway messages and word of thanks.
Oh, that was a fantastic discussion with the adolescents. I would have really loved to have and stretch it further for allowing a few more panelists to ask questions directly to the adolescents. It's kind of a revelation for all of us who sit and approach nutrition communication in a very top-down manner, thinking and prescribing what's good for adolescents than listening to them often. I think this is a very good interactive session, and then we would really want these adolescents to please take forward the message of nutrition and be ambassadors of nutrition information to their peers, and then let the nutrition zeal in you not wane away as you grow up. Thank you so much, and greetings again on Children's Day, and thank you very much for your participation. I think this has been an excellent session with lots of takeaways today. But as has been the tradition, we just give out about 5 takeaways from every e-dialogue. And the 5 key takeaways for me from this e-dialogue are that I think we should talk beyond nutrition literacy. I think from Helen's presentation, what I understand is it's beyond nutrition literacy alone. We need to talk about food literacy, while nutrition literacy only tells you the best sources to get good information and then the right sources of understanding nutrition. Food literacy goes a step further and makes you assess what you've chosen and also tries to help you choose right. I think one is we need to emphasize on food literacy, but at the same time from Dr. Srivastava's presentation and also from Helen's presentation, what we need to know is the metrics to have to assess whether children and adolescents are truly whether the adolescents truly have the nutrition and food literacy or not are very important. And as Dr. Srivastava said, they have to be, if any metrics are evolved, they have to be evolved only in terms of the context and the culture that we have in the country. The first takeaway is talking about food literacy in a broader sense, wherein we try and give enough autonomy to adolescents to choose their foods and also to participate in the process of building food environment. Second is to build the metrics to have them, and such metrics have to be very context specific. And the third and most important is a tool from the discussion that we know from also Vishal's presentation, we understand that the adolescents know that a lot about nutrition, but the problem comes to apply this particular aspect in their day-to-day life. The application part is very important, and that's a key part of food literacy. to enhance those skills, the continuous reiteration is very, very important. They are not oriented towards healthy eating, although they have the knowledge. So it's a mutual, habit of building the environment together that they need to share. And as Naya has already said, if an adolescent actually goes in terms of choosing healthy food and right kind of food, there could be the others who say, you're being too health conscious as though it is some sin. So I think to be health conscious is something very important, is what is to be put across to them through good food literacy programs. And most importantly, the experiment of Ekjut suggests that beyond just sharing knowledge, making children do and making them partners in the endeavors can help take the nutrition literacy forward. We can see them talk about the kitchen gardens. We can see them being part of campaigns of dissuading others from doing nashapanti, that is, taking alcohol and tobacco and things like that. And we also see how important it is, because in rural areas also these days you see unhealthy foods being sold for pittance, whereas healthy foods are a bit expensive. So to be able to choose the right kind of foods within what is available is a skill that involves involvement of the adolescents. And last but not least, the fifth and key takeaway is textbooks and curriculum are key, very important, but they are not the all and end all of nutrition literacy and food literacy. What they need more is an interactive session or interactive sessions from credible people who instill in them the skills that will last through their life, the skills of differentiating between healthy and unhealthy, the skills of choosing right, the skills of reading labels, and the skills of understanding or choosing the right foods from what locally is available. These are the 5 key takeaways for me. And I really thank all the panelists for their patience, especially Dr. Lakshmaya and Dr. Helen and Dr. Srivastav for sparing their valuable time and being part of the panel. And the adolescent panelists, you were really amazing. You made the Children's Day really a memorable one. And we're very happy and to think and believe that nutrition is in very, very safe hands. Please take this message forward. And I would be failing in my duties if I don't thank our director for all the support that she's given and guidance she's given in framing this program. I will also thank Dr. Preetu Mishra from UNICEF for being around and helping us all the ways possible. And my thanks to PHFI, especially Tina and Professor Monica, for putting us through to NCERT and the youth leaders. Thank you very much. And my special thanks to Catherine Backholer from Deakin University for actually introducing us to Dr. Helen. Without her, today's e-dialogue would have been incomplete. And my thanks are also due to my wonderful team, Kiran, Priyadarshini, Reshma, Paramita, Panda, and all the others who have done an excellent job of handling this entire e-dialogue series. And my special thanks to our Journal Club secretaries, Dr. Anantan and Mahesh, for giving this particular e-dialogue a wide publicity. And many thanks for all of you, audience, and excellent interactive audience who stayed on with us 15 minutes beyond the scheduled time. Thank you all. Thank you once again. Stay happy, stay nutritious, and stay well.
Thank you.
That is Dr. Subbarao. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Subbarao. Thank you.